a trust accounting. So
We're like, what?
I said, you're only keeping me from a trust accounting. So
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. That's important stuff there.
welcome the distraction.
Yeah. Welcome distraction. Precisely. All right. So Todd, I'm going to read your little thing here just so that we can get this
Oh gosh.
rocking and rolling. So Todd is passionate about sharing his experience and knowledge in communication, leadership, personal growth, corporate culture, and nonprofits. He's also a DISC certified consultant. I want you to explain that to everybody. And writes for numerous publications, including an international publication. He's also been certified as a diversity, equity, and inclusion trainer through Empowered Living. So I'd like to welcome Todd to the stage.
Now we have to go, woo, woo, woo. I need my walk-up music. I need my walk-up
Everybody
music.
cheer.
Great to be on the call with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Thanks, brother. So I'll let you take it from here, my friend.
Wow, that's an open-ended question. Well,
Where
first
do
of all,
you want to take this boat? I don't care.
I hate introductions because I don't like hearing people talk about me, but
I know I'm the same way.
someone told me, be proud of what you accomplished.
Uh-huh.
Eric, AJ Vassar, and
Oh yeah.
he and I had a conversation about belief systems one time, and he said, Todd, tell me about some of your accomplishments in your life. So I talked about some things and just kind of hemmed and hawed, that old roll up your sleeve, blue collar, middle class pride, and didn't say much of anything. He goes, Todd, he said, shut up. You got a terrible belief system. And I'm like, and AJ's a big guy. Fortunately, he was on the screen, not in front of me.
Yeah, he is a big dude.
Yeah, but belief system. So anyway, thank you very much for that kind introduction that you read so well.
Yeah, and he needs a photographer.
Yeah, right. I got a lot of comments from my friends on those. That
Did you? Okay, good.
Yeah,
good. That was awesome. Man.
So you mentioned the DISC part. I started my leadership journey with the John Maxwell team, and I'm not going to bore people unless you want me to with that 5-year journey. But as part of what John offers as part of his team is becoming certified in DISC. And you can become a trainer or you can become a consultant. So I became a consultant and took some really easy quizzes or whatever to get the certification. So, but it's an incredible tool, and I use it a lot in what I do. I wish, more people would take advantage of it. And the DISC assessment, real basically, it's a 15-minute assessment or less that you take, and it's personalized. What I really like about it is you're the one answering the questions. It's not your spouse, your partner, your boss, your coworker, your kids, your dog, your goldfish telling you who or what you are. It's you filling out this assessment. And just like any good assessment, you can narrow the 4 questions down to 3, and then it's really hard to decipher which one of them is most like you. But that's the whole goal, is to analyze what situation are you in now in your life, and answer the questions, the comments, the statements related to that. In my case, and there's all sorts of different DISC, what do I want to say, like groups out there, or enterprises that use them. With the Maxwell report, you get a 30-page assessment of what you took 15 minutes to answer. And I can't think of a time where somebody has said, no, this isn't me. Now, there have been maybe little bits and pieces here and there where somebody might not agree with a little statement, but the closest thing that came once, a friend of mine named Gordon read his, and he was like, oh, this isn't me, da 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 da. And then he shared it with his wife, and his wife says, well, Gordon, this is just like you. This is exactly you. So sometimes we don't want to see our own blemishes, but it doesn't only tell blemishes, it tells about where your strengths are too. And one of the pieces that the Maxwell DISC assessment has is, it's called Power Strengths. And it rates you on 7 different skills and rates you on your strengths based on how you fill out the assessment. And I think it's really important, because I think sometimes we talk too much about, we want to, enhance our weaknesses. We want to improve our weaknesses. We want to get strong, but really we should spend more time on growing and increasing our strengths. Our weaknesses, we can bring other people in to help. We can bring Christine in to help us with financial estate planning, or a lot of services that she does. We can bring Eric in to talk about the intuition effect, or you can bring me in to talk about corporate culture and leadership, but really focusing on the strengths that you have. So and for those of you that love data, there are some graphs that you get as part of the DISC assessment. I'm an I personality, so graphs and charts are not my strength, but those who are C personalities really love data and graphs and Excel spreadsheets and all that. So there is some of that. And then there's also obviously a lot of information related to the communication, behavior, the workplace, and then the last part of it, you develop your own action plan that you can work with through a coach, or that you could certainly work through on your own. So I guess that's kind of an overall snapshot. I certainly would welcome any specific questions, Eric, that you might have, or Christine.
Sure. I mean, can you
What are
talk?
the four, so DISC, when you're talking about DISC, because you said C, you said I, what do they stand for?
So there's the four different elements are the four letters. So the D is a dominant driven personality style. The I is inspiring personality style, enthusiasm. S is very steady, very focused on teamwork. And the C is compliant, very much a data-driven person. And along those lines too, is that all of us have all four of those styles in us, but some of them are more predominant. Some people are a single letter. My style happens to be an ISC. So I is my predominant style. So it depends on how you complete the assessment.
Yeah, I think I'm an ID. So it's been a minute since I've taken that test, and I was trying to look back and see if I could find it, but I was reading the.
Inspiring dominant?
Huh?
You're an inspiring dominant?
I am.
Okay.
He wants to get stuff done, but he likes to have fun doing it.
Exactly.
Well, another interesting component is if you look at, kind of globally, the breakdown, only 3% of our population in general is a D style.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in certain professions, it may be different, but only 3%, which is probably a good thing, because if everybody was dominant and driven, we'd probably all be basket cases.
Right.
69% of our style is the S style, which is the steady team player, wants to get things done. There is, I think it's 11% are the I personality style, and the remaining 17, I think it is, are compliant. So it is spread out. But for example, I did some work at Generac in their IT department, and as you can imagine, most of the IT people were S's and C's. I think of the 80 I did, there were maybe 5 that were D's or I's. So in that particular case, you hire for what style you want. And there are businesses, when you look at talent attraction and retention, there are businesses that are using this as a part of the hiring process, because you want to make sure you have a full and complete team. So if all your personality styles on your team or in your business are D's, you better try to get some I's, S's, and C's in there to try to help balance things out a little bit.
So talk a little bit about that. Like, what have you found is kind of a good balance in building a team?
Well, again, I think it depends. Again, the Generac example, in the IT department, you probably do want more C's and S's, because obviously very, very data, very software driven, very specific and precise. In other parts of the organization, the HR area, you probably want a good balance, because you want to bring in a good balance of people. So it kind of depends on the profession. But I think in any organization, any department, any business, any institution, you want to have some balance in there, so you can bring in different ideas and different strengths to the business.
So, I mean, I understand that. I mean, what are you seeing? I mean, you talked about a little bit about the, and the clients that you're working with and the people you're talking to, like obviously you need a little bit of dominance, but you also need, people to toe the line and be able to do all the detail stuff. Is there kind of like a percentage breakdown that you're seeing? It's like, this seems to work really well with the people that you've been working with, like, a 10% or 15% D, and we want to have people in the I to be 10 or 20%, and everybody else can be this. Have you found anything else? Have you found out how to really like break these down? Like, okay, you need to have this be part of your team, and this, these people you want to have in this kind of spot. What does that kind of shape out for you?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, again, without going into particular industry, I think, a lot of, 10%, really paralleling what the statistics are, but I would say about 10% of a D,
Mhm,
probably 20% I, 20% C, and then if I did the math right, 50% of the S style.
mhm,
Because again, you need people who are willing to sit down and tear data apart, put data back together again.
mhm,
You need people who need to keep pushing to get things done. You need people that will do things for the team, that people that you can always count on to get things done for the team. And you need those people like me that are kind of goofy and fun and really don't achieve much at all, but they keep people motivated. Um, so you do need a little bit of that balance. And it's also amazing too. And Eric, I know we talked about this the other day. What can come out of this? So oftentimes what I'll do is, I'll do an assessment of a business or a department, whatever the case might be. Then I'll sit down and have one-on-one meetings with each of the individuals and walk through their specific DISC assessment. Because for this to work well, you have to really understand yourself. And that's what this is all about. But then I'll do workshops or masterminds to follow that up. And one workshop I did the other day with a business in the Milwaukee area in southeastern Wisconsin, it was the first time they had gotten together as a team. Actually, they'd done some Zoom meetings, but the first time they were face to face. So we did a lot of conversation about what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and went around the table. People shared, and this one gentleman who was closer to myself in age was talking about how he was bullied as a youngster, and obviously something like that still impacted him. And he said what really helped with the DISC assessment was he could better understand his teammates, and that the D personality styles weren't necessarily bullying him. That was their style, that they were more driven and dominant. So the fact he first of all had that self-awareness of himself, and then
mhm.
how that tied in with the team will really help that team function so much better. It's not that D's have to become I's or I's have to become C's. It's just understanding who you are, and then how can I better work with the people that are around me, whether it's an inner circle of advisors or whether it's a business or a group of entrepreneurs, whatever the case might be.
Do you,
So, go ahead, Christine.
do you give tips and tricks on how to deal with the different personality types in the DISC assessment? So if you, because imagine the communication that you have with a D is very different than somebody who's a C. Vice
I would
versa.
say, I would say probably a quarter to a third of the report gives you ideas on how to deal with the different personality styles, how to develop those relationships. So again, the first part is really much about you discovering yourself. And then the middle part is much about you discovering how to work better with other styles. And then the last part is really, okay, what sort of plan do I need to put together so I can work well with others and I can better understand myself? So yeah, absolutely. The report does pull that through.
So I'm curious, what have you you walk into a group and it seems lopsided. How do you approach that? Or is it kind of like the awareness piece and everybody like kind of like falls into place? Or, is there a shuffle that has to happen? Or, what kind of recommendations do you make to, obviously you got people bringing you in to, to like, number one, do this, but also number two, create some recommendations around it. What is that? How does that work with, what you do?
Well, again, I think just like anything related to leadership,
Mhm.
is it needs to be an ongoing effort.
Sure.
You can't have Todd come in and do a 3-hour workshop, flip the switch, and everybody gets along and sings Kumbaya together.
Right.
So I think the fact, and that's why I do workshops. We also do masterminds. Again, at Generac, we went through I think 3 different books over the course of 6-7 months, where they would read a book. One of the books was Everyone Communicates, Few Connects by John Maxwell.
Mhm.
Another one is Who Moved My Cheese, Spencer Johnson. Another one was Patrick Lencioni's book, The Ideal Team Player. And we didn't treat them as academic studies of the book. They were just created a foundation for discussing what the challenges are for that team.
Mhm.
So, and then we had conversations about, okay, what's going on in the organization? What can we do to improve our communication? How can we build that trust? And people did a lot of self-reflection and reflection on each other. There were 2 gentlemen when I was at Generac. One was out on the East Coast, so he joined us virtually. And they said, when you first started here, I really didn't care working for you. you were really, you were just I thought you were getting out of your lane. You were doing my stuff. You weren't doing the stuff you're supposed to do. So they
Mhm.
talked about, and they both kind of felt the same way. But hey, they got on the phone and they started communicating. Imagine
Mhm.
that, right?
Right.
But just some simple things like that. Also, I mentioned in the hiring process, again, I think, if you see that your team, by doing this assessment, is really leaning one way or another, first of all, you'll better realize why you are
Mhm.
or aren't accomplishing what you need to accomplish. But secondly, in that hiring process, maybe you need to bring in something like DISC to do part of the assessment. Now, I think there are some rules about using DISC as a singular tool to hire people. Nobody would do that anyway. But if you use it as one of your tools to figure out
Mhm.
what type of people you want to bring in, it can really help you in that regard, and help you get some balance to your team, and
Sure.
really help you kind of jettison yourselves.
Yeah, no, I think it's been really important. I've used Culture Index, and I'm sure you're familiar with Culture Index, um, in a number of places, and it's having that kind of personality tool to understand where people really sit and where their strengths are. It's such a huge benefit, and people just I think that in this day and age of hiring, you've got to really help understand, because training costs are so darn expensive. Because you got an employee, or in my case, you got an employee that's sitting there learning the business, and you essentially got to pay them for anywhere from 90 to 120 days before they really kind of like get the position. And so if they don't get it after 120 days, it's like, what do you do?
And
And
this is
so I think it's
this is
super good tool.
yeah, and when you look at the expenses of attracting new employees,
Hmm.
this is a really high value opportunity to
Hmm.
help retain your employees, help them function, better together as a team. And I think, and you look at all the statistics about engagement or lack of engagement in the workplace, and meaningful work. And you peel away all the crap in a business. Excuse me for saying such a naughty word,
Oh,
but you peel
stop it.
away all the
You mean
you
shit?
peel away all the junk. Yeah, not like dropping an F-bomb, but you peel away all the junk in a business. You peel away sales is struggling, marketing's not doing this, production isn't doing this. What does it come down to? Personality. I mean, I
Mhm.
look at this show. I love the show Bar Rescue, like where the guy goes in and works at these bars and restaurants and kind of saves them and resurrects them. I realize it's a show and it's edited, but what it comes down to, it isn't their food or their drinks or it's the people,
Right.
and how they work together. The front of the business doesn't like the back of the business, or whatever the case might be. And it really, a lot of our ineffectiveness in the workplace comes down to, or ineffectiveness in life for that matter, comes down to personality and behavior and communication. And
Mhm.
it's simple but not easy, that's for sure.
No, it's true. Christine, what else? You got any more questions?
Um,
This even works in Canada.
yeah. What was that? Really, you said that one T thing, something about in Canada too, or something. Anyway, I think for me, it's I don't know that I've ever done a DISC assessment. I'm trying to think if I have. If I have, I didn't realize I was doing it. Um, what's the size of organization? Like, if you had like a lot of employees, I would imagine this would get pretty complicated. So what is there a size of team that it works best with?
Well, I guess the answer is yes and no. The challenge is, getting the people together. So Generac has 10,000 employees across the world. So obviously you can't drop in there in one day. You kind of have to chip it off into. So for example, what we did do with the IT department, there's about 90 employees just in their IT department. But anyway, so we took their leadership within the IT department, which is about 30 people, and took them through this, the one-on-ones, the workshops, the masterminds. And then the remaining 50, we did they also did assessments, but we did a general workshop with them. So everybody at least had a good understanding of it. So you can do it in different ways. I think in terms of the conversation piece, just like any workshop, probably, 15 to 20, but you can do it in really, I've seen it done in groups of 100. You can give them the assessment. The fewer people, the more detail and deeper you can dive in it. So
Right.
I guess that's what you kind of have to figure out.
How do people decide that they're like, oh my gosh, this is really interesting and cool? I mean, where's kind of the light bulb moment um, in this really like, I guess what's the biggest pain point that they're facing when they decide to like, oh my gosh, I need to do this, and Todd's the guy.
I'm always the guy, but I always talk about silos, drama, and barriers.
Okay.
If you're in a workplace where there are silos, drama, and barriers to getting things done, this is a tool you can use. Now, I can't think of a business that doesn't have that.
No, yeah,
That sort of
100%. Yeah, I
challenge.
mean, it's prevalent all the way across the business. It's, it's the personalities that are really get, either are a bonus or create a little bit of a stalemate, if you will, about getting production done.
And again, what I like about it is it's not the boss saying that, it's you telling yourself more about your style, your behavior, your communication, how you work. It's not like you sit down with HR at the end of the year and go through that painful evaluation where to fill in all these circles and write all these comments, and nobody cares about what you have to say anyway.
Mhm.
This is something that you do. So, and it's beneficial for yourself, and it goes with you too. It doesn't necessarily stay in that workplace. So it's an outsider coming in. Sometimes businesses try to do things internally and it's like, oh, here's the boss telling me something. But this is where you assess yourself, and then you bring in someone like me who can facilitate the discussions. And with Generac, we had some amazing revelations. I told you the one about the two people, where there's a comfort level in that room because it's not the boss again mandate. It's a third party facilitator come in talking to them about something that they completed on their own. So that's what I really enjoy about it too.
Is there any research, Todd, as to like if we took a pool of 100 business owners, that more of them would be either a D, a I, or S, or C?
I'm sure there is. I don't have any like off the tip of my tongue. It's interesting because you would think most CEOs are D personality styles, more dominant and driven. Not necessarily the case. So I could certainly find some. I don't have, other than the general research I gave you before, I don't have any specific to that. Again, I think it's important. You could go into a business with my personality style, as long as I have people that work with me or for me that have other personality styles, right? Because it isn't so much that a CEO, and I know you're not saying this, but it's not so much that a CEO needs to have a certain personality style, but that they have personality styles in their inner circle that are involved in making sure that business functions well.
You got it.
Interesting. So like talk about, I mean, we've kind of talked about little shifts. I mean, have you seen, what are the long-term kind of benefits that you're seeing? I mean, obviously we kind of know that productivity is going to go up. I mean, have you got any way to kind of like, have you found any way to like measure that a little bit to say like, oh yeah, well, productivity has gone up, blah. And, we've been able to reduce expenses by so-and-so, and, sales have, started to ramp up because now that, because that's really a sales tool as well. If you, once your salespeople understand, these are the 4 traits, and you can kind of start picking those out. And if they understand how to pick those out of people, then they can, understand more frequently what they're, where they're coming from. So I'm just kind of curious if you've got any kind of like, seeing any numbers around this, or how you can kind of like quantify this.
Well, again, there are a number of businesses, and I apologize, I don't have the specific. I'm not a C personality style, so I don't have all the data you guys are asking for.
You don't care.
but I do know there are a number of businesses, a lot of businesses that use DISC as part of their hiring process. So the current employees they've had utilize the assessment, and then as they bring new employees on, they take this assessment as well, and they're able to jumpstart. There are some businesses that, and I don't agree with this necessarily, but some businesses on their signatures for their internal email, they'll include their personality style.
Oh, interesting.
Some businesses on the people's nameplates outside their office doors will put their personality style. Now, to me, that kind of gets, I think that's going over the edge. I mean, if
Mhm.
someone does it, that's fine. But then it becomes like you're pointing fingers at people and saying, oh, you said that because you're an I.
Right.
Well, no, they said that because they're a human being who has an I personality.
Mhm.
So you have to be careful about, the Scarlet Letter, that book we
Mhm.
read 100 years ago, or I read 100 years ago, where you're tagging people, just like almost, in a racist kind of way in some ways that, you are that way because that's so you have to be careful how you use that. But again, there are businesses that use this regularly, use it for employee attraction and as part of the hiring process. So it's an effective tool. I just don't have any specific.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I didn't know if you
What
had
would
any.
be cool about that? I mean, I get that you don't want to scarlet letter people, but what would be cool about that is if you know all the different personalities and you know how you have to speak to a D to get somewhere, and you
Absolutely.
simply before you go into that office know what that would be easy. But yeah, there's probably some people that take it to a different level for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd, you talked about being like a DEI kind of specialist. What's your work been in that area?
It's been limited. And if you look at me, that may be part of why it's limited, which sounds horrible to say, but I think unfortunately, sometimes you look too much at the exterior than the interior of the person.
Mhm.
But I do speak a lot, and I've done some. Actually, just did a session for Unleash You Now at their movement maker. And I call it "Differences Make Us Better." And as I teach about diversity, equity, inclusion, I really focus on the inclusion piece and how can we bring people together. And I tie in personality because there are 8 billion different people in the world. And I use the kind of the iceberg analogy where you see the top of the iceberg above the water is about 10%. And that's what I see in your face, Christine. I see it in you, Eric. And if I were at a crime scene and had to describe you to the the sketch artist, I could do that. But I'm missing 90%, and I'm missing the 90% of who you are, right? So I can't tell much by that what's above the iceberg. Yet 90% of what we judge people on is that 10% that we see.
Right.
And I think that's really unfortunate. So I spent a lot of time about how those differences can make us better, how you can use you can use again a tool like DISC, or talking with people about their core values, having uncomfortable conversations about things, and how if you watch Fox News all the time, you should watch MSNBC for a little bit to
Mhm.
really respect what other people's, and vice versa. Same thing in the faith world. If you're agnostic or atheist, you should listen to or watch a Catholic or Christian podcast once in a while, because by understanding how different we are, we can grow so much closer together. And that's kind of what DISC does in the workplace, only it's more style related than it is related to DEI specifically.
Why did you get into that? Just out of curiosity.
Well, what really kind of
I mean, I think it's
Honest-
cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm just.
no, yeah.
It's-
What
it's
really kind of
interesting.
brought it together for me, I mean, I'm closer to 100 than 0, so I should have figured this out a long time ago, but I didn't. And I've had experiences along the way in my life related to that have been, both good and bad. But I was involved here in our community. We had our school district had weekly calls during COVID, and they were to learn better what was going on in the community, right?
Mhm.
Where are we going? What direction? Who's closing? What about masking? All these different things. Well, one of the sessions happened soon after the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis.
Mhm.
And somebody got in the call and said, maybe this group should continue what we're doing, but also tackle this issue in our community, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And it really kind of fell on deaf ears. And it happened to be an African-American gentleman who I've known for many years before he came to our community. And so I got on the phone after, and I called him, and I called the superintendent who led those calls, and I said, hey, Al, I heard your comment. I think we should really do something. And I was embarrassed and tired of hearing about the challenges and nothing being done. Granted, there were 50,000 people that put out statements about diversity after that incident, right?
Right.
And they had it very well polished by their marketing people and blah, 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 right? And accomplished nothing. And everybody was hiring diversity, equity, inclusion vice presidents who were, a certain ethnic background. And I'm thinking,
Right.
this is stupid. This gets back to differences make us better. So I created this group. We grew it to about 12 or 15 people. And I called the group Uncomfortable Conversations. And the reason I called it that was I heard a webinar that John Maxwell and Simon Sinek did.
Mhm.
And Simon said, interesting, Simon Sinek said that after this incident, he didn't know what to do. So he got on the phone and started calling the people he knew, his friends, and started having uncomfortable conversations. And I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly what we need. So I created the group, and I did not allow any elected officials to be on there. I didn't want it to become politicized in that regard. But we had police, we had United Way, we had school district, we had probably 12 to 15 people, university, different ethnic backgrounds, and all these people on the group. And then the school district decided to hire a diversity, equity, inclusivity court. I'm not sure the title, director, coordinator, whatever. And now he's kind of taking over that group. So that going through that process, I'm thinking, okay, I need to have some formalized training in it. Not that the training was anything different than I knew, but it was just good to go through that. So now I can say that I'm certified in it. But it was a great kind of adventure journey to go through and learn a lot.
That's awesome. Huh, that's great. It's I've seen it a lot in the corporate world. Kathy, great that you could join us. We were just talking with Todd a little bit here. It's a little casual conversation, so you can jump in anytime. Todd was talking a little bit about we were talking about DISC earlier, and he's also a diversity, what is it? Diversity, inclusion, equity, inclusion person as well. He's certified to teach that or train that, I guess, in corporations. So yeah, I was talking to a friend, and it's the same thing with their big corporation. They're going through this whole thing where there's just learn about this and learn about this, and they're actually, it's kind of interesting. They're talking about in the resumes, taking the names and dates off of the resumes,
right?
Just to include preclude you from judging off of a name.
And we are all human, and we all do judge. I'm sure when we got in the call, Christine saw my mug and she's like, what the heck is this guy doing here? No. But and Kathy's laughing so hard at me, she doesn't even have her camera on, right? But anyway, yeah, we're all human beings, and we all judge, and trying to get through that. And it's really, I understand why you take the names off and etc. But it's almost kind of sad too that it's gotten to that point.
Agreed.
And I went through a hiring a number of years ago when I was at United Way Dane County. I got promoted to VP position, and I had to hire my replacement. The two finalists, one was very much looked like me. Art was very much, he loved basketball as well, and he was 6'4" like I am. And the other person was Dora Zuniga, a very strong Hispanic woman. And I talked with my CEO, and she coached me very well. She asked a lot of questions because I wanted to hire Art initially. Fortunately, I ended up hiring Dora, and she brought a great, not only a diversity of her ethnicity, but diversity of thought and talking about strengths and weaknesses. She filled in my weaknesses, and I filled in hers. And it was funny because we had lunch together, I don't know, probably about 2.5 years ago now. She lives in Tampa. And we had a 3-hour lunch. We didn't eat the whole time, but we had a 3-hour lunch.
Drank the whole time.
We talked about how much we learned from each other through that process. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it's about. It's not about ethnicity. It's not about that 10% of the iceberg. It's about who we are, not what we are.
That's awesome.
Todd,
yes.
I live in the Tampa area, and I wasn't laughing at you. I'm actually laughing at myself because I can't figure out how to get my camera to work on my phone. So I'm going to come. I'm going to come on the big screen here. And sorry, I missed the first part of what you talked about. Could you just recap in a couple of sentences what you shared in the first, if other people don't want to?
Whoops.
There we go. Yeah, well, thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that. Actually, and Dora is a member of one of the Rotary groups in Tampa too. So I don't know how engaged you are in Rotary, but anyway, yeah. So we talked about DISC. Great tool, great assessment for um, personality styles, work styles, behavior styles, and learning more about yourself. There she is. Learning more about yourself as an individual and your styles, and then how to work better with others and their styles, and how much personality is so critical in the workforce to get through all the silos and drama and barriers that we have to deal with.
Nice, nice. I'm familiar with DISC myself from earlier training that I had. So it's a great tool. And hi, Christine. I don't want to leave you out here. I know Eric. So Eric, thank you for letting me come in late. I apologize.
Absolutely. Now, Kathy and I have known each other. We met, what, 2 years ago, I guess, in a mergers and acquisition mastermind group. So we've gone around the sun a few times together. So,
Yeah, and I think the other piece of Kathy, as you were talking, it made me think that, and I mentioned it before, is that persistence and consistency, right? You can send your VP to a leadership training for a day, and he or she can come back and all enthused, and it fizzles. So you need to be persistent and consistent. Same thing with using DISC. It's a great tool, but if you do the assessment, do a workshop, and then forget about it, you've wasted money. And I really would prefer not to even get involved in that regard. I think, again, it's something that it's just like exercise, right? Or love, relationships. You have to keep at it. You have to keep thinking about it. You have to keep working through it. You have to look at it through different lenses. Same with DEI and those challenges that we face personally and in the workplace.
Well, I really resonated with what you guys were talking about earlier about judgment. And for me, I like DISC. I don't love DISC, but I like it for the reasons of, in my experience personally and working with teams and stuff, is that persistency and consistency is hard to keep going once people learn about it and stuff like that. So I kind of coupled that with an assessment that's free online, and if you don't mind, I'll share it. I'll put it in the chat because it goes to the root of why we're having those behaviors that are popping up in DISC. Would that be helpful? Inappropriate? I don't know. I don't want to.
That's fine with me. It's up to Eric, but
Yeah,
yes.
that's fine. So put in there, Kath.
All right, let me find the link, and then I'll be right back. But keep talking. I don't
Okay.
know. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get on earlier. I was on.
Oh, that's fine. And there are a lot of assessments and a lot of tools out there. And as I said, in my overall business, I use, there's probably 5 or 6 different ones that I use too, depending upon the situation. So there's a lot of ways to get at things. But if we don't take action, I always say if nothing changes, then nothing changes.
Right.
I think so many people and so many businesses are just like, what do I do now? I've got, I have to hire new employees every week. And well, change something, bring somebody in, have a strategy session. I'll talk to anybody for free, have a strategy session and figure out what you might do. Maybe I'm not the right one. I don't care, but for gosh sakes, do something, because it's almost sickening what's going on in the workplace. It's sad.
Yeah, well, status quo is status quo.
Yeah.
Until something, it's physics, an object at rest remains in rest until another force is put upon it. So it's the
I
same
think
thing.
that statement about people don't leave organizations generally because they're unhappy with their work. They leave because they're unhappy with someone within that organization,
Mhm.
right? Or there's a bad relationship or whatever. So
It's always, it reflects back to the leadership, right?
mhm.
Exactly.
Eric, I know what you do. I don't know Christine, what she does, or I don't even know what you really do, Todd. So could you guys
Let Todd go first.
Oh, okay. So I was going to let you go first. All right. So hi, Eric.
Hey.
So I focus on my mission is to revolutionize corporate culture and leadership. So I do a lot of coaching, speaking, teaching, training in that area. Corporate culture is what I really look to change, what I really love working with, helping businesses, again, get rid of these silos and drama and barriers in the workplace, help them become more efficient and effective. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I do. So I work in leadership as well and team building, a lot of different arenas in regards to that.
Where are you located?
I'm in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, center of the state of Wisconsin.